Hello, everyone. My name is Rody Ramsey, and I'm the Junior Media Manager here at the European Food Information Council, or EUFIC, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, which is Navigating Nutrition and Diet Trends in the Age of Virality. So welcome. What we'll explore today. So we will be looking at why nutrition trends spread, what misinformation looks like, and how to push back with science-based communication using real-life case studies, which we have 4 of them today, which are the carnivore diet, intermittent fasting, juice cleanse, and the keto diet. We have 3 lovely speakers with us today that will be our navigators to help us cut through the noise and bring science back to the discussion. I'll give the floor over to our panelists so they can present themselves, and starting with one of our in-house nutrition experts, Laura Bosman.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Laura. I work at the European Food Information Council as a content manager. So I'm responsible for our social media channels, and I write articles that go on our website. And I have a background in nutrition and health and public health epidemiology.
Thank you. Elise, over to you.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. So my name is Elise. I'm a cognitive linguist, and my research has focused on the linguistic and the cognitive mechanisms that make some messages really persuasive, especially in the long term, so the things that really stick with people. I'm a co-founder of foodfacts.org, which is a website that is primarily dedicated to fact-checking viral misinformation about food. Whether that relates to health or the environment or ethical issues as well. And one of our goals, and what I'm mostly involved with, is to try and make fact-checking a platform where we can develop media literacy skills a bit further.
Great. And lastly, Henrike.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for having me. So my name is Henrike Böhme. I am a communications manager and also a project manager at Nutrition Hub. For those who don't know Nutrition Hub, it's a Berlin-based NGO. We are a think tank and also the biggest nutrition community in Germany. So we have something that is called an expert circle, where we have more than 500 dietitians, scientists, nutrition professionals. And our aim is, together with our experts, to work towards a healthier, a more sustainable, and also a better informed society. So there comes the nutrition communication and science communication aspect. And so what we do is we really actively connect and share knowledge, and we really drive forward projects together with our experts, meaning we actively connect them with each other, but we also with stakeholders outside our little nutrition bubble. And we also organize a lot of events, and most importantly, we write reports. And one of our most important reports or outcomes there is the nutrition trend report that we published beginning of this year. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of chances to talk about that report later. But yeah, this is our focus work.
Great, thank you all. And with that, we are gonna get started. There we go. Okay, so all right, to the webinar, Navigating Nutrition and Diet Trends in the Age of Virality. So we will be, as I said, looking at food trends, what misinformation looks like in action, and most importantly, how to push back with science-based communication. Okay, so as a starting point, we're just going to look at some of the top trending diets this year. We have, obviously, the keto diet is still one of the most popular diets, developed actually back in the 1920s. You will inevitably have come across at least one of these diets via social or traditional media, no matter how much you may try to avoid them. But diets have also become more extreme in recent times, with the example of the carnivore diet, an extreme form of the ketogenic diet that excludes all plant food in its entirety. So I'll be passing now along to Laura. Why don't you start off by breaking down some of these popular diets and the kind of health claims being made about them.
Yes, thank you. So let's start with one of the two most talked about diets online, the carnivore one and the ketogenic diet. Both of these diets have like exploded in popularity, with proponents claiming these diets can cure everything from like autoimmune diseases to depression, and they're often linked to weight loss as well. Especially the carnivore diet has been promoted as like this ancestral way of eating, as it only relies on animal products. And it's also often paired with like a distrust in the conventional dietary guidelines, and they rely on like extreme anecdotes from people. The ketogenic diet is a slightly more moderate type of the carnivore diet that also centered around like a very low carb, high fat intake and promoted for rapid weight loss. So what do these diets have in common? They often blame carbohydrates or plant foods for chronic diseases. The people use absolutes to convey these diets and rely on personal testimonials, or they cherry pick their studies to sell these diets. And often they are also like selling supplements or online coaching programs to promote their way of dieting. But what does the science actually say about these diets? Well, we have the ketogenic diet that was, as Roddy said in our introduction, developed in the 1920s, but actually for epilepsy. And there's limited long-term evidence on the safety or sustainability of these diets for the general population. And the carnivore diet lacks like a strong scientific evidence in its entirety, and cutting out so many food groups, especially plant-based ones, that raises significant concerns for gut health and the nutritional adequacy of your diet. So like they're not scientifically backed or anything to promote for the general population.
Great. And also, Elise, Food Facts recently did a fact check on the carnivore diet. What other nutrition and health claims have caught your attention swirling around online?
About the carnivore diet?
Yes.
So I think we do have a few fact checks on the carnivore diet, because like you said, Laura, the claim is that it can solve absolutely anything, and I mean everything, from fatigue, low energy, to hormones, weight loss, autoimmune diseases. Everything goes in there. And so there's many, many, many claims that can be debunked. I think the main idea really is that it's not conventional. So it goes against what all nutritional guidelines tell us to do. And the idea being that it's the way that humans were designed to eat. So they all go back to this idea that this is the way that we as humans were meant to eat. And so everything else doesn't fall into that diet and just doesn't work. And so if you're not losing weight, that's why. It's because you're not following the diet that humans were meant to eat. And I think that's why it's so powerful, because they're giving you a reason why it works. So all the claims that we debunk always go back to this idea.
Great, thank you. And of course, we have next to also the intermittent fasting and juice cleanses. Or what are some of the health claims you've seen also in your myth busting process?
Yeah, here we go again with like absolute claims and a lack of references usually, and a simplified storytelling method. Especially like the idea that not eating or only drinking like juices can somehow like override years of bad or poor lifestyle. And this idea that maybe our body, like our liver and kidney, doesn't do a good enough job to eliminate like harmful toxins from our body, and we need to rely on these magic type of juice cleanses to do our body's job for it. But when we actually also look at the evidence, these diets are not suitable for everybody, and like especially those with a history of disordered eating, this can lead to like even more long-lasting negative consequences for them. And yeah, there's really no evidence that they detoxify anything, and they lack the protein, fiber, and other vitamins and minerals to like suggest them as a effective long-term dietary pattern. And also when we look at the intermittent fasting, that may be like a useful dietary strategy for some to lose weight. But when we look at the evidence, like they're not superior to other dietary diets when they're matched for a caloric intake. And yeah, they're not suitable for everybody. So that's why we don't recommend them as a dietary strategy for the general population.
Yeah, thank you for all these scientific insights. And as you see, like a lot of these examples we pulled from social media, so Instagram, TikTok, but also blogs, sometimes like nutrition blogs. And yeah, basically, this is my question. Henrike, you obviously mentioned the latest nutrition trend report of this year that also identified, as we see here, social media as a key driver of food trends. In your view, what impact is this having on consumer food choices and dietary behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. You summarized it already quite well. So our experts that we asked in the trend report, and we just to yeah clarify a little on the trend report and our method, we asked 199 experts on their observations in their field, and obviously our experts come from all kinds of different fields. But one of the main observations that we had was that social media is definitely now one of the primary sources for nutrition information. So this is not like the examples that you use here for the different diets. It's definitely not these examples are not fringe. They're mainstreamed and through repetition and, as you said, through this emotional resonance. And one of the observations that we also had from, for example, university professors that teach nutrition is that even students who, come in as quite informed and obviously very curious about nutrition, that they follow these trends quite uncritically. I mean, I don't want to generalize. Not all of the students did this, but some. So it's definitely a changing behavior that students are more informed, but they also follow these trends uncritically. And before education can shift their thinking, or before education actually leads to a change. But it definitely not only impacts the behavior for, let's say, students, but also for the mass, let's say, like I said, for the mainstream people, because if social media is the number one resource and the number one source for information, it obviously changes nutrition behavior very critically. And some of the, let's say, experts from the more communicational side, or also who are very active on social media, they also mentioned that it's very important to address this with, a lot of empathy, and to not, let's say, educate people with the finger, say you shouldn't follow this, but to actually meet them with empathy and evidence when addressing clients and audiences who follow these diets.
Yeah, that's of course that's something that we're seeing a lot is we're getting swept up in social media, and it's honestly hard not to, because especially we see some examples here of like there are advice given by nutritionists or self-proclaimed nutritionists, dietitians. So I mean, it takes education in itself to even learn how to navigate it for oneself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and also one of the things that our expert said is that because of the amount of information that is out there. So if you look at, I mean, just now we looked at four different diets, but obviously there's many more out there. And because of that information overload, people experience quite a lot of, or quite a high level of insecurity and fear. So they're overwhelmed, and they seek belonging, and especially young people and those people in a bit more of transitional life phases, let's say, they adopt these diets, and they don't really do it primarily for health. I mean, also for health, but they also do it for identity, for structure, for community, so for all these emotional reasons. And this is obviously a huge change that we see, moving from just following a diet to following a lifestyle, and following more of a, yeah, almost like an identity guidance there. to reinvent themselves. Yeah.
For sure. And with that, now that we have seen some examples of fad diets, we'd like to pick your brain a bit and see if you can spot any red flags. So we have a diagram here of an influencer and some claims, which is also very similar to some of the ones we've seen in previous examples. So yeah, if you can write in the chat or have any ideas as to some of the red flags here that come across to all of you, then we can share some insights. And as well for Q&A, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to write in the Q&A box below and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So yeah, some that we have here, let's see. Blaming a single food or habit for the rise of chronic disease. As we see here, stop eating apples is the #1 cause of chronic disease. Then, yeah, as Laura, you also mentioned it previously, the speaking in absolutes. We see that a lot online with all 4 of the case studies that we have seen. Also a big one, no citations and use anecdotes as evidence. Yeah, that is not kind of grounded in science. And yeah, well, it tells you not to trust doctors, but sells their own products. We see this a lot also using these diets also to promote personal products or their businesses. And that is a red flag. But we have a little tip to keep in mind, the 3 R's. So the red flags, responsibility, and of course in science world, references is very important. So now that we've seen a few of these examples of red flags, like to pass it on to Laura, that looking at how and why fad diets go viral. So specifically the patterns and tactics used to push these fad diets.
Yeah, so let's zoom out a little bit and see like why these fad diets catch on so quickly and what they tend to have in common, because they share often similar patterns, similar characteristics with each other. Because people rush to these types of fad diets, as we call them, as like a magic bullet for their long-term problems. But they can be easily differentiated from like a healthy and balanced diet, as we see in our national dietary guidelines. So as the left graph on this side shows, most of these viral diets tend to share a few key traits. First of all, they often promise fast results, whether it's weight loss, mental clarity, detoxing, and this plays into like people's desire for quick fixes, even if they're not sustainable, because people want answers quickly and they don't want to adhere to a diet that gives them only result after so many months of hard efforts. And also they tend to be overly restrictive. So the carnivore and keto diet often exclude entire food groups like carbs or grains. And this creates a sense of control or discipline that can feel appealing, but it often just leads to nutritional gaps. As I mentioned, these diets are also very hard to stick to long term, which isn't surprising since they cut out so many food groups. They're very rigid in how they're designed and not very flexible. And they just lack a strong scientific backing. And the proponents of these diets, they may cite like preliminary research, or like they even misinterpret the research at all, or they even just use like personal anecdotes to sell these diets. And this makes like these types of diets highly shareable online, but in reality, they're just unsustainable and potentially harmful in long term. And then that's what we see on the right side of this slide. It's the way these diets are sold, using things like absolute language, simplifying complex issues, and relying heavily on personal anecdotes and testimonials, and appealing to this type of identity that we mentioned by Henrike before.
Yeah, great, thank you. And then Elise, of course, with your expertise in linguistics, I'm gonna pick your brain a bit on the language use in viral nutrition claims. How does that influence their perceived credibility and believability using terms such as cleanse, toxins, and superfood?
Yeah, so I think that does two things really. If you just look at the words in isolation, they sound like you've just got on the slide here, they sound sciencey. They sound scientific. So it gives them legitimacy because it makes it look like, well, this person knows something that I don't know. They know about a mechanism that I don't know, so I can trust them. So that's the first thing. But then those words, they all add up to like a bigger frame, a reasoning frame. And that works a bit like a metaphor. So you're talking about eating, but the frame of reference is a very simple, straightforward event, which is something toxic enters your body that leads to something bad, but that can be reversed by the reversing event, which is detox. And what that really does is it focuses on very simple, direct cause and effect relations, and that makes sense to people. So they hear that and they think, yeah, that makes sense. And that's what makes them want to then spread the message and share the post. And I think that's really what makes those messages really, really powerful. Because they make sense to people when they hear that. So those are the two things I think that does.
Okay, and then of course we also see things like the appeal to identity, personal anecdotes, which was also picked up in the nutrition report. And that leads to my question, such as in what ways do personal identity and lifestyle influence nutrition decisions beyond just the traditional health considerations?
Yeah, definitely. So I think Elise already picked up on, or she already summarized 2 points, two really important points very well that were all also observed by our experts. And this is definitely the whole promise, let's say, that the whole promise follows the fear plus promise formula. So you have a fear first, and then you promise to kind of fix it. And this all then comes back to an emotional trigger. So nutrition itself is a very emotional and personal topic, and that is something that our experts see, even more on the rise now than ever. And social media thrives on these emotional triggers. So basically, it's for non-experts or for influencers in general, obviously it's quite easy to just put the emphasis on the emotional triggers and win with, let's say, very, hardly scientific facts. And then also what a lot of our experts also observed is that, nutrition influencers that don't have a background in nutrition, they often then outperform science in visibility. So, like charisma, appearance, storytelling, all this is a bit more important than credentials and evidence. So, people don't really fact check, is that really someone who has gone through an education? And this is obviously a major challenge for dietitians and nutrition experts to compete with. We also had one expert. I actually brought a quote. Let me check. I have it here. Yes. So one of our experts also said that media consumption is increasingly shifting toward snackable content. So meaning that even shorter videos, even shorter messages that must hook users within the first few seconds. And this is exactly what influencers do. So and what you also showed earlier, that it's really spot on, very short messages with a hook and basically gets people attention very easily, while, science gets more complex and more evolving and it's changing. And considering that, obviously, these narratives and these short messages become almost seductive because it's just so much easier to consume them than real scientific facts. So these are definitely the challenges that our experts observed in the trend report, or also apart from that, and that is the underlying, let's say, behavioral observations that our experts saw.
Yeah, if I could just jump in on, I think what you've said is really interesting, and I've got just to give you like a concrete example of this, of like just how far and how much of a reach these people have. The last person probably that I would have expected to be reached by these people would be my mother-in-law, who is a very intelligent 80-year-old lady who lives in rural Northern Ireland in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't know technology, but she was given an iPad to look at pictures of her grandkids. Um, but then she was diagnosed with pre-diabetes, and she was sent home with, a leaflet to say, diet changes are important. But she didn't know what to do. So she turned to YouTube and came across, all these people that I fact check on a daily basis. She knows them all. She's come across all of them. And the way that she was talking to me about the ones that she likes and the ones that she doesn't like you were saying, Henrike, it doesn't have anything to do with their qualification. It has to do with, I like the way he speaks. I don't like the way this one sounds. And then she was asking me if I had recommendations of people that she could trust. And so I gave her a channel, and she listened to the guy, and she said, I do like him. I just wish that he would tell me what to eat. And I think those two things, there's the charisma, but there's also that simplicity of, this is what you need to do. And like you were saying, Henrike, like scientific language is much more cautious and nuanced, and it evolves as well. And that's not what most people are looking for on social media. So yeah, just thought I'd give you that example to show you what it looks like.
Perfect. Yeah. It's very relatable. I think we all have that one person in our field, like surroundings, if it's a friend or parents that come to you with, these needs, or that come, let's say, follow a certain influencer and then ask you for your opinion. And you're just sitting there like, please don't follow that person. Because it's, yeah, like you said, people crave very simple rules in a very complex food landscape and nutrition landscape, and while also connecting that with the emotional and identity aspects. And so yeah, I think we also talked before the webinar on the whole aspect of a charismatic leader in the field of social media, and they really use that need for, identity, quick facts, for belonging and emotional language. And what was also sometimes observed by our experts is that really indicates that people aren't just seeking sole nutrition advice, but that whole belonging aspect that I talked about before. So now nutrition professionals, like the ones that actually know their stuff, they're competing not just with the misinformation, but with those influencers who give that whole package. And so that's definitely a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, yeah. And so I think there's great potential for experts to move into that field of quick facts and emotional needs, and yeah, helping your mother-in-law, for example.
Yeah, like you were saying, it's more than food. Like the carnivore people, for example, it's rarely just about the food. Like you'll see them walking bare feet. That's often a claim that, you have to be grounded and you have to seek the sunshine and don't wear sun cream. So it's, it goes way beyond food.
Yeah,
Great, thank you for
definitely.
the overview. As we see, like there are many patterns and many tactics used, and some are more difficult to or challenging to counteract than others, and some it's just a conglomerate of yeah, different tactics used and it's, yeah, as I said, it's can be quite challenging to navigate as a mother-in-law, grandma, even. I mean, not only as a layperson going on social media and just seeing what's out there, but I mean, I can imagine that for the older generation too, it's not harder and very, yeah, confusing. But then this brings us to if not our most important point of just what are the best practices for communicating, yeah, these science-based messages to the public and starting to counteract these often not accurate but the engaging. That's the biggest, engaging and emotional. That's the biggest thing going for these fad diets. They really call to people, and they really basically find a home for them to just feel comfortable enough to explore these diets. And how can science start to incorporate some of the narrative or some of the pool that these diets have, while also, yeah, of course, most importantly, being accurate and science-based. So I'll segue to Laura, and can talk a bit about what your myth-busting process is like, and what strategies you use.
Yeah, so lately at EUFIC, I've been using this like treat before myths strategy, we call it a little bit, which basically is that the strategy starts with correct information before addressing the false claim. And then it goes on to explaining the fallacy that's in the claim, or like why the diet doesn't hold up. Because we know from research, if you lead with the myth, you risk to only reinforce it, even if you debunk it later. So that's why we need to start with like the facts and what is actually the evidence saying on this topic. Another strategy that I've been using is to fight sticky myths with even stickier facts. And basically what this means is that myths spread because they're simple, emotional, and easy to remember. So we also need to meet that with clear and like vivid facts that are just as compelling as the myth. So for example, on EUFIC, we just published 4 new articles on our website that debunk the 4 case studies that we've seen in this webinar. So let's take the carnivore diet as an example. So a common myth in this diet is that you need to cut out all plant-based foods, including the dietary fiber they contain, because this is more in line with how our ancestors ate. It's sold as this neat story, but it's not actually accurate. Because when we look at studies that looked at these types of ancestral groups and these hunter-gatherers, they actually consumed up to 100 grams of fiber per day. But yet most Europeans today, like we even struggle to meet the recommended 25 grams of fiber per day. So this is kind of like a stickier fact to fight the misinformation.
Great, thank you. And I mean, these are some of the strategies also we use here at EUFIC, amongst the others. But Laura, I want to bring your attention to the just especially the narrative, like going beyond the facts and not just stating is this right or wrong, or I mean science-based or not, but reason checking. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so like if we just counter the claims with a simple statement, this is not true, that doesn't tell people anything, like why is this not true, why is what I'm believing, why doesn't that hold up? So we actually need to explain and like go into the reason why these diets don't work, and explain to people, have them like a story to tell on why these misinformation diets don't hold up.
And Elise, how important is accessible, transparent language in communicating science to the public? We've looked at the different jargons used, and how language plays a key role in both portraying science, but also having it be understood.
I think it really is very important, I think, for credibility, because we want to be transparent. And the trouble is there's nothing, even at Food Facts, we don't even like to use the word true at all, even though there are things that are true. But even that word in itself can be quite, in nutrition especially, everything is so nuanced. You can't really say this is healthy or not healthy, this is true, this is false. There's always a bit more nuance. So using the right language and using transparent language, and showing, that even though the majority of the evidence points towards this, I think it's important to point out when there's limitations and explain, there's not one right way to eat, basically. So using that language, that transparency, I think is important for credibility, really, and to show that nothing is really black and white, which is what social media tries to portray.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. And Henrike, is there anything from the nutrition report that highlights some ways that some best practices one can use to counteract?
Yeah, definitely. So we absolutely support what you said and also what Elise said, that like the tone and trust matters sometimes much more as the truth. And I'm not putting this because I agree with Elise that we should maybe avoid the word true there because it's definitely not black and white, just as you said. And yeah, I think I've said it maybe sometimes a bit before. I was getting ahead of myself, but it's definitely the fact is that people have a growing hunger for orientation, and so people sometimes, yeah, they don't really lack the knowledge, but the guidance, and they seek for that in social media. And so, like dietitians and nutrition experts that are active on social media, they definitely need better tools to understand and respond to those narratives and not just the claims, like you said as well. So that is definitely in line with that. Also, one thing that's maybe important here is, or that we thought was important also from the insights, is that it's not just important how you communicate, but also where, because we really need to be aware of the fact that it's not just a little something that's going on TikTok and we can just ignore it because it's not our thing. But we really need to communicate where the public looks for information. And we can't deny the fact that it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's YouTube. And so we can't really, yeah, close our eyes from that. Um, while people also look for I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I think you have in one of your questions that the number one top trend was observed is that people are seeking for personalized nutrition. So everything is personalized, everything is very tailor-made and something that is aligned with their lifestyle. So they seek these holistic approaches, and that is definitely something that can also be conveyed on social media. Um, but also one other thing is that the community, especially from the counseling part, so from the therapists, from the nutrition experts that really work with clients, is that there's a rise in the requests to debunk those claims in counseling. So the demand is definitely there and it's real. And this also means that there's a big chance for dietitians and a great opportunity for nutrition experts to move in there and to actually see social media as a major opportunity to reach a broad audience and to change something. So yeah, this is I think the main takeaways. Um, Actually, some of the solutions also for science-based messaging that were mentioned is to, for example, reframe content around daily relevance. So not just health outcomes, but to make it a bit more tangible. And then also to translate science into like micro decisions that people can take in everyday moments and to use relatable questions like instead of asking the big questions like what is a balanced diet or like Elise said, what is healthy, what is not healthy, to actually, what can I eat when I'm stressed? What can I eat when I'm feeling not well in certain moments of my life and that kind of stuff rather than the whole big questions. And yeah.
I think that's a
So
really good point about trying to translate what it means for people to make it more personal. Because when you look at scientific language, and if you read a study, it'll say, oh, that reduces your risk by 15%. And it's a relative risk. It might be that if you didn't do that, it would be 17% rather than 15. And for the general public, they look at that and they think, I don't really know what it means. Whereas somebody comes up on social media with an anecdote and they can see what it means because this person is saying, I've tried this and it worked for me. And that makes sense. So I think, like you were saying, to take science and to translate that into what does that mean for an individual is a really powerful strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also to train those experts to make them like communicate more like digital citizens, like also the following generations, let's say. So it has to be quick, visual, compelling, emotional. Like the list is so long. Like even when I say it, sometimes I'm like, how are we supposed to fulfill this? But if you train nutrition professionals not only in their knowledge but also in their media literacy and in the way they communicate, that is definitely a big chance there, to then get it to the right people that also communicate, quick, visual, compelling, like the snackable content that we talked about.
I also wanted to add, like often what we see with these influencers, they have like this role model status. More say like we have the before and after pictures that we see a lot on social media, and we think like they did this transformation. Oh, we can do this too with the methods that they use. So actually, like a better strategy would be also to train like the effective science communicators to have like this storytelling approach that are used by the influencers as well to like promote evidence-based dietary strategies.
Great. I mean, these are usually the highlights and some of the best practices, but of course, there's for all the patterns and tactics that there are, there's probably an approach to counteract each of them. But of course, these are one of the main, if not pressing, ways to, yeah, communicate scientific messages better to the public. And with that, I segue into more insights into nutrition trends and how to counteract these fad diets. And I'll leave the floor for the panelists to explain a bit about each of their resources. So starting with you, Laura, here at EUFIC.
So in EUFIC, we have this whole myth-busting page, as we call it, which is basically like how we visualize this is this selection of cards that if you hover your mouse over it, they immediately flip around and you have the main key message that debunks the myth. So we have our 4 latest diet trends, but also topics like seed oils that we see so much on social media now. We have some on low carbohydrate diets as well. Something about ultra processed foods and is like food with more than 5 ingredients immediately unhealthy, like these types of absolute claims that we see on social media. So we use the strategies we mentioned before to debunk these diets.
And for the nutrition trend report, Henrike?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, of course. I think I've mentioned it like 15 times now in the whole webinar, the nutrition trend report. Like I mentioned earlier, we asked 199 experts on their observations, their opinions on how the whole nutrition landscape is changing this year, but also over the next years. And so there is a section where we discover the top 10 trends that were rated by our experts. But obviously, all the experts were also asked to give qualified answers. So it wasn't just a multiple choice thing that we did, but we really wanted insights. And one by one, we went through each and really got out the most of the observations and the statements by our experts. And this we all put in the nutrition trend report. And we published it beginning of this year. I think it's still relevant as ever. And actually, we're planning on publishing the next one in 2027. So we're publishing it every 2 years to actually also see a bit of, change and developments there. But it's definitely something to read if you want to know what the future of nutrition will bring. And obviously, what we talked about today is definitely part of it. But most of the things that I shared today, some of the things that I shared today are not in the report. This comes from quotations and citations that I took out specifically for this topic. But it's definitely part of the overall trend report, the whole discussion on social media and yeah, also fake news, let's say. So yeah.
Thank you. And lastly, food facts, the org with Elise.
Yeah, so food facts, the idea behind it is that we want to bring accountability because there is no, currently on social media, there is no accountability. And I think there's research that shows that it takes about 10 minutes to post a claim on social media. It'll take like 10 hours. It's not really the right statistics, but you get the idea. It takes a lot longer to fact check something and to bring evidence-based information than it does to spread misinformation online. And so we want to bring accountability, and we research the claims that are the most viral on social media and try to do timely fact checks on them so that people can find out the evidence behind the claims. We work with a lot of nutrition experts, doctors, and try to get people from different, not just following one diet, to get a range of perspectives. And we work with media experts as well, so that we can try and bring this information in an easier format. So that's the idea behind food facts, is that it should be consumer friendly so that everybody can access it. And we do some research as well. We collaborated on this report published by Rooted Research this year, which is a really good read if you want to have an overview of what misinformation about nutrition and health looks like. They've come up with these 3 personalities that you can really instantly recognize when you look at social media. There's the doc, the hustler, and the last one is the rebel. And they've come up with these personas that you can, when you're scrolling through social media, you can recognize them. So it's to help people to spot misinformation online as well. So yeah, so that's what we do at Food Facts.
Thank you. And this brings us now to the Q&A portion of the webinar. So yeah, thank you. And bring it back to our panelists. Okay, and especially if you have any questions coming up, feel free to type them now since we have a bit of time. I see now Melanie Jennifer in the chat. For nutrition and health professionals, can you suggest any courses on social media communication, how we can learn how to improve our communication skills within social media? Like you said, so basically where to start. We even had a similar question, basically recommendations for trainings for nutrition professionals, especially how to successfully communicate on social media, which we touched upon a bit on like the best practices, but I think people would like some actual tangible trainings or where to even start.
Is it okay if I jump in on that question real quick? Because the thing is, one of the unique opportunities that we have with our expert circle of nutrition experts is that there's also a lot of people that come from communications or they're really active on social media. So we also have some actually nutrition influencers in our network. And I can't right now recommend a very specific course or a very specific training, but I know that there are a lot of experts there that actually offer these kind of trainings. We have someone like Verena Franke in Germany who does these communications training, but I'm sure there's also English versions available, or let's say English trainings. So my offer there would be if you're seeking for a person to talk to or a company where you can check out the courses, you can send me an email. I can also write my email into the chat, and I can recommend those to you. There's also a lot of events happening around the whole nutrition and science communication topic this year, from different NGOs, etc. And I think there might be a chance there to learn something or to take away something. So I would always recommend to do this in a workshop kind of atmosphere with other people that are trained or also training to get to also get the exchange with other experts and nutritional professionals. Would that make sense to put my email in there so that I can connect the people interested with our experts?
Yeah, sure. So any other, I mean, this general question to the panel then, any other ways I mean, besides trainings and such, I mean, we shared our resources and insights, but any other tips you can give, especially nutrition and health professionals when, yeah, trying to communicate or their findings or on social media?
I think that's really difficult. I was trying to look for courses. I'm not sure I can think of any course in particular. I was looking at the Health Sciences Academy, which might have something. I'm not sure that they do, but they might. It's one of the places that I would look at if I was to look for a course. I think I would just follow evidence-based, like people who do that kind of communication online, follow them, and then you get, after a while, you just sort of get list of how they communicate. There's people who do there's one platform that I really recommend. It's called Nutrition Made Simple with an exclamation mark. And the person who runs it has a PhD, I think, in nutrition or something similar. And he's also a science communicator. So he's working on both sides. And so following, I think, platforms like that in the long run is really helpful to then get an idea of how to communicate these ideas to the public.
I agree. And maybe to add to that, I think you could also look for people that also do content around how to make scientific content. So next level, not just people or not just let's call them influencers that do nutritional content, but also that give tips on how to make your content a bit more appealing or also viral in a sense. There's also a couple of accounts there also from our expert community. And for example, if any of the people listening is also a nutritional scientist or a nutritional expert, they can always apply for our expert circle. And then I can also connect, the people with each other, and we can, work together towards a better communication and debunking those myths.
Yeah, as we see in the chat, it is, again, that's quite right. It is quite frustrating when, yeah, as you say, people should know what they are talking about. Yeah, doctors, PhD researchers still spread wrong information. And yeah, that's what makes the space so challenging and, as we see, like difficult to navigate. And we saw, I mean, even in one of the case studies, that a lot of the recommendations also come from like self-proclaimed nutritionists and that. So not only influencers or charismatic leaders that, just pull you in with their personal anecdotes, but yeah, people who are like self-claimed professionals. So I mean, how do you have to become almost a professional yourself to uh, uh, again navigate this space. So yeah, we totally feel in your frustration. That's why I mean, this is just, as we see, like there's so much to cover. This is just an introduction, let's just say, into viral diet trends and how to navigate them. But we hopefully do more, and then as we see, there's a lot of space and needed, or yeah, there's a lot of demand for resources as we have. I mean, we try to share as much as we can, and especially now for trainings, which we also might do in the future, since yeah, it's something that is definitely needed. But yeah, if there aren't any more questions, or yeah, that's what we have now. Yeah. Yeah, nutrition made simple is the clickbait approach for titles of the videos and turn the narrative around of the video itself. Yeah, headlines are a big opportunity to sort of grab you in, and sort of we saw as one of the tactics fear mongering. We see that a lot in headlines, especially when a new study comes out, and yeah, it's easy to get people riled up, and a lot of, well, we haven't touched upon this, but that's a whole other side side discussion. Our algorithms too, which really promote engagement over accuracy at times, and yeah, that can drive the clicks. But yeah, so anyway, putting it to the pen, are there any last thoughts, especially from these last comments coming in from the people watching?
Yeah, I think just as a reaction to one of the comments in the chat, I think that's the real issue with social media is it gives you, because like the person says in the chat, you do have PhD researchers and doctors, and that was one of the things that we found in that report, that there are quite a few doctors who spread that misinformation as well. And I think what it does is people, when they go on social media, it gives them the illusion that it's a 50-50 divide, that you've got some doctors who say this and some doctors who go by the nutritional guidelines. And so it gives people the illusion that there's no consensus when there is really. But that makes it really, really difficult to navigate. So yeah, I think, yeah, we definitely need resources to fight this because it's a really big issue.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and also just the frustration that I hear from also from the messages. I know that frustration myself, and I remember myself before I studied nutrition. Um, I was just as confused, and I was just following those trends like any other, meaning it can happen to basically anyone, and even the informed ones. That's the problem. So yeah, I'm very, let's say, emotionally engaged, or I'm very, very happy that that we empower or that we can empower people to become more visible, and that those experts can become those trusted voices in this very, very online, noisy nutrition space. So yeah, definitely. In Germany, we would say Herzensangelegenheit, so it comes from the heart.
Great. Any last words, Laura?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, which was already said. Like all this nutrition misinformation just spreads so easily on social media, and that may make people like throw their hands in the air, like, oh, I don't want to believe anything, but then they still don't know what to do. So we really have to make like the advice that's told in the dietary guidelines just practical and really accessible and in easy to understand language to the public.
And I think that concludes our webinar. Again, the discussion doesn't really end here, only this specific webinar. There are many more to be had. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate your interest and engagement, and thank you for sharing also your frustrations with us. Of course, a big shout out to our amazing panelists for the great insights and discussion. Of course, again, please check out their resources. A lot of what we discussed here in this webinar with the slides, we've also pulled from, again, the nutrition report and food facts, or they have a similar mission to ours, debunking these food myths. And stay tuned for more content on tackling misinformation on the EUFIC website, not only through myth busting, but we also do media reactions for when a new food study comes out, and as we see, the headlines go wild, and also do deep dives such as this webinar, where we take a closer look into complex food and health topics and their representation in the media with the help of researchers, science communicators, and media professionals, just to try and clear up the confusion. So thank you, and have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.